Where would we be without the various products delivered by the men and women in the trucking industry? Healthy Conversations in Trucking podcast is a platform for professional long-haul truck drivers to share their journeys over the road, educating listeners about the trucking industry and lifestyle. Now, let's dive into the conversation on this brand new episode. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this episode. I say us because Jonathan's with me. Hey, Jonathan.
Yay! What's up, Doc?
I wanted us to come together to discuss a topic. I actually have some questions, and I was picking up things from what I've seen Jonathan do with the truck and conversations I've heard him have with other drivers and just comments that he's made. And I started asking a lot of questions. He started answering some, and I thought, no, let's make this a podcast episode. So that's what we're here to do, for him to answer some of my questions, because I think a lot of you that are truck drivers will think, well, this is common knowledge. It's a thing we talk about all the time. But those of us who are not truck drivers may find it kind of interesting. So, you ready?
Yeah, but one more thing. What's interesting about what you just said is truck drivers might think it's common, everyday stuff, but there's still a big distinction between the two that we're going to talk about. And different drivers have different opinions about them. So that's going to be exciting too.
Yeah. Well, we're being a little mysterious on purpose. We want you to tune in. So here's what I'm
next week.
Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. After you hear our little chat about this topic, I want you to either comment on one of our social media posts and let us know what your thoughts are or feedback, or if you have a different set of tips or takeaways. We would love to see that. So we post on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even LinkedIn. So wherever you hang out on social media, if you're following us, Healthy Conversations in Trucking, when we post about this episode, we'd love to read your comments. So make sure you find us and share with us what your thoughts are. So what I'm talking, my whole, mysterious topic here is really around safety concerns for truck drivers. And I have a lot of questions, and they're not, I typically have a lot of questions. I think that's my nature. I just have a lot of questions about all things, but I really want to talk about safety concerns. So I'm going to start with just asking you to tell me a bit about just your thoughts around, surrounding safety, safety for big truck and for drivers and in general.
Okay. Well, the most important thing about driving a truck is your truck. So if you don't have proper tires with, the proper air pressure in them, or bald spots and stuff like that, you're not going to be safe driving down the road. If you don't have no oil in your, your engine, your coolant, or even the silly thing like windshield washer fluid, that's a violation. You can get, in trouble for that with those DOT guys. So, basically in the morning.
Wait a minute. I have to stop you there for a second. It's a violation if you don't have the proper amount of windshield washer fluid?
Oh, not the proper amount, but you got to have something in there. Because if you don't have anything in there, then, when your windshield gets, debris in it, or, in the wintertime, it's all that salt stuff. If you're not able to clean that window off so you can see properly, it's a violation.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm sorry. Keep going.
So basically, you want to have a routine that you start every morning. Now, there's a big debate out there about how long is your pre-trip. Some say it's 15 minutes. Some say it's 5 minutes. There's nothing in the rule book that I know of that says it has to be a hard 15 minutes. So, basically you get into your routine, you're looking for. So, when I get up in the morning and I get up and get situated, I'll walk around the truck and I'll kick the tires with my flip-flops. No, I'm just kidding. What I do is have
flip-flops.
Yeah. But what I do is I actually I have an air pressure gauge. People like to thump the tires. I don't like to thump the tires because I don't know what a thump full and a thump empty is. Now, that's just one thing that's going to stir the pot, because some of the old timers out there can, they say they know, but I take out the old air gauge and I check tires, my steers and my drives, and I look underneath the truck. Is there any leaks, anything like that? And every other day I do check my oil. Being in a new truck or a truck that's new to me, you want to get the habits of the truck and learn the truck. Is it burning oil? Is it using oil? Is it using coolant? And, things like that. So I do that. And I check the lights. Got to have the lights, it's the doggone daylight savings time. So first 2 hours of your driving shift is going to be at the nighttime. So you got to make sure your lights are working. Some of these trucks, most of these trucks now have a button you push that goes through a sequence of lights and test all your lights. And if there's any lights out, you'll have a little display come up on your dash and you can address it there. But that's just some of the safety concerns, getting started in the morning. You get into a routine, and once you get into the pattern, your pattern, then you know what to look for, then, you won't mess anything up.
So does everyone set their own routine?
I would hope everybody has their own routine, because what might work for me, won't work for somebody else, and vice versa. It's your truck. You're in it every day. You drive it every day. It may be a company truck, and it may have a fleet manager to take care of the maintenance of the truck. All in all, it's your truck. You drive it every day. If you hear something down the road that doesn't sound right, then you know something's wrong. Or if you feel a little vibration in the steering or something like that, because you're in that truck, that's your office. And for most people, that's your home 3 to 4, weeks at a time. So getting to know your truck is probably one of the best safety things you can do for not only yourself, but your family members and the people around you.
So, so I have a lot of questions just based on what you just said. When you mentioned checking the tire pressure, I know in my car, I can do that on the dash. So is that a thing with the big trucks? And if so, then can you just go by what the dash tells you the pressure is?
Well, not in any truck I've been in yet.
Oh, okay.
So there's, you got to get out there. Usually, depending on what truck you drive, I know with the auto haulers, you want to have 130 pounds on your steer tires, or you want to have 120 pounds in your drive tires. Now, most of the trailers today have self-regulating air that pumps through the tires, and usually that's set at 100 pounds. So there's no need to check those tires if, you got a leak or something in there, little red light comes on or yellow light comes on, and there'll be a malfunction coming up. It says that one of your tires is down. So you really don't have to check those, but you do check the connections for the airflow for the tires, make sure it's connected. And in the past, I've had some that have been rubbing up against the rim and they cause a leak. So you got to change them out every once in a while. But I don't know if these new trucks, they have the digital dashes and things now. So there might be some trucks out there and that tell the air pressure. I'm not sure. There are some companies that also run the self-regulating air in the drive tires too, where they had that set to a certain amount, and it's always going to have that pressure in the tires. But your steer tires, they ain't come up with something like that yet. So that's where the old, air gauge comes handy.
Okay. So you mentioned pre-trip. So is that the same as just what exactly is the pre-trip?
Well, the pre-trip is the first thing you do when you put on your logs. Again, there's some people that put it on there and some people don't. Some people say that you don't have to put it on there and you only got to put a post-trip on there. So, basically it's what your company dictates and they went to see on the logs. So the pre-trip will be the first thing you do in the morning when you log on to, your logs, the electronic logs, I'll leave it at that.
So it's
anyways,
whatever you're doing to check the truck before you drive.
Yeah, right? It's the first thing you do before you drive. So that's the pre-trip.
Okay. Interesting. All right, I'm going to stop asking my questions. You might start laughing if I ask you any more about that.
No, why would I do that? Come on, Doc.
You do it all the time.
Yeah. But you're in the truck out every day, so come on now. You're all right.
Okay, so what about, let's see. I've heard you talk a lot about, well, you this is where we were getting to the point where I said, okay, let's come to the podcast. So you were talking about merging, safely merging, and you used some terms that I thought you were making them up, but I guess not. So explain to me what you were talking about with merging, and you said something about a zipper method versus a straight line.
So this is where we can really stir the pot, and this should generate a lot of comments from people. I have this buddy of mine, and we talk quite regularly, and we come up with the same argument every time, and that's the merge point on a highway. Now, being a former law enforcement officer who's directed traffic for many countless wrecks and, keeping the flow of traffic going, there's a method that I used as a police officer to keep the traffic going, and that was basically what I like to call a zipper technique. And basically a zipper technique it's just like the same function as a zipper on a jacket. You have two tracks that merge together at one point, but they don't go at the same time. So you have one tooth, then you have the other tooth, and so on and so on as you zip up the jacket. I have found, in my professional opinion, that is the best method to merge into a one lane in a construction zone. So basically you have both lanes that are going up to the merge point where the lane comes down to one, and then you have one car go, then one car, and one car, one car, one car, one car, just like a zipper to zip up your jacket. Now, there are some people out there, like my buddy of mine, who thinks that the straight line method is the best method. So the straight line method is this. If you see a construction sign that says, right lane closed 3 miles ahead. Well, there's some people that want to start the line right there at 3 miles. And they want to get into a straight single line. And then they just want to go through up to the line and keep going. Now, in theory, yeah, that might be nice. It might work. But in the real world, where there's people that are impatient with everything, what happens? So you get a bunch of people in one line, and then you have these cars that start going around, or then you have these other trucks that go around, and then they get into the other lane, and they race up to that same merge point, and then they got to squeeze on in. So the people that have been sitting in the line now are upset at the people that have jumped the line and have tried to get in front of them, and they're going to hold their ground, and they're not going to let that person in front. So it just causes a lot of anger, a lot of stress, and a lot of finger pointing and words exchanged. So, I mean, so me and my buddy, we have this conversation all the time. Whenever he's driving in a certain area and I'm driving in a certain area, I like to use the zipper point to the merge point. Yeah. So there's two ways of doing it. And I know that we are not the only two drivers that talk about this, because you listen on the CB, the CB used to be child friendly, but you come to a construction zone where there's people are trying to merge and get in front of you. It's not child safe or friendly. So
that is interesting.
It is. It's a topic that has been discussed and debated on for a very long time. So,
well, first of all, I'm pretty sure I know which friend you're talking about. and then the second, this actually made me think about, recently I took a long road trip, and that scenario pops in mind because I was in an area that I wasn't too familiar with. So by the time I realized, oh, this is happening, the lanes are, we have to merge, there was already the long line there. So I had to go further down to wait for a spot to then jump in. So I always get dirty looks when that happens. You know, I do the Southern wave and big smile like, thanks. But I get it.
It doesn't help you is what the car you drive. But anyways, that's another story.
Well, you think that, okay, we won't go there. So people don't like me because of my car?
Yeah, there's a stigma that comes with that kind of brand, yes.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I do think from what you described, I kind of like the idea of the zipper method, because I know that once I got to that point, there were a lot of people trying to get over. I would tend to kind of let one person go in front of me and then move up and expect the next one to come in behind me. So I kind of like that flow, but
it's almost like the pay it forward type deal.
Yeah.
You know, when you get to a drive-through and the person in front of you paid for the meal, so you pay for the person behind you.
Yeah.
And it keeps going like that and like that. And everybody's happy and kind and courteous. And, you know, traffic never comes to a stop because everybody's merging in together. Straight line, you're going to sit for a few minutes. And then you're going to move like 5 feet. Then you're going to sit for 4 minutes. And then you look in your mirror and you got 25 cars racing up the shoulder and alongside of you because they're mad at the trucks that are slowing up the lane and stopping the lane. And then you got the other trucks that are coming in. They're like, well, I'm going to get in front of them anyway. So it's a pot stirring conversation that, there's no, obviously there's no right or wrong way to do it,
right? Because,
you know, everybody's on the road and you're trying to get to the same point, and just everybody wants to get there first. You know, it's just a matter of, are we going to do it cordially, or are we going to, you know, put a R rating on our conversations?
Well, it definitely raises safety concerns on multiple levels. Not just the concern for the wreck, but road rage and all the things that go with it. So I say pack extra patience.
Yes, patience is a virtue out on the road. Yes.
All right. So that was interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping we get some comments, you know, and so we can do a follow-up on it, and we can do a study, and we can have a 300-page white paper to send to Congress about, you know, lane merging.
I don't think they will care to read a paper of that type, but I would love to hear their comments on this. I would love to hear that. I look forward to reading those on social media, so hopefully people will chat along. Okay, so let me ask you one more question before we sort of wrap up. And I guess it's around parking. You know, you always talk about, you know, where am I going to park? Where am I going to park? Not as much lately. Like when you're in a routine or a pattern, then you don't really bring it up as much. But when you are out of routine and you're going to someplace new or different, you're preoccupied with parking. And so I'm curious about that as a safety concern, and how do people decide where to park?
Well, one of the biggest issues with parking, and I know I'm not alone with this, is the electronic locks. Most of the people start their day, you know, fairly early, 6:00 in the morning, and you know, by law, we've got to be, you know, stopped by 5. And if you get, you know, hundreds of thousands of trucks that have to be stopped by 5:00, you know, parking is prime. Now, it's just me personally. I never park on off ramps or on ramps. I just couldn't sit there and get a good night's sleep thinking that, you know, I'm safe, because I know I'm not, because there's always the drunk drivers out there. And you see stories all the time. And again, being a former law enforcement officer who's dealt with some nasty wrecks, I don't want to be a cause of one of those wrecks. Even if I'm off the shoulder with my, you know, my running lights on, an impaired person might look and see the lights and follow the lights. Next thing you know, you got a car up underneath your trailer. So that's always a big concern for myself. So you try, you know, you want to plan out your trip, and you want to try to see the best opportunity or the best place you can park for the night. But then again, you don't want to get into a sketchy area where you're going to be up all night thinking, is someone going to break into my truck, or someone going to break into the back of the trailer, or steal a car off the truck, or something like that. So you want to try to be focused about staying in a safe area. Most of the rest areas are accommodating to a point, but then you got some that only have, parking for 3 or 4 trucks. One of the prime examples is there's a rest area on Highway 66 going into Fairfax County into Washington, D.C. Eastbound and westbound, you can get 3 or 4 trucks in there. So, that's a big safety concern also. So you just gotta plan. You gotta know where you're going. If I'm going to a place I haven't been to before, I always use my Google Maps, and along with that, I'll use the Trucker Path app and try to coordinate. Where can I go and where can I stay safely within a reasonable amount of delivery time or pickup time. And I sort of have that pre-planned, and then I'll always have a backup. So if I can't make it here, can I get to this other spot? One of the greatest things for a driver is to have a routine, and I have a dedicated route where you know you're going to stay every time. You know you're going to fuel up. There's no questions about anything. That's the perfect scenario. But mostly in the real world, for 98% of the other drivers, you're going to a place that you've only been to one time or a new place. So, planning that trip out, and having your safety backups as far as when it comes to parking is crucial. And I know it's silly, but, my first job when I first got my CDL, when I got on my own, my driver manager, I had to submit a trip plan. And during that trip plan, I had to, trip out where I was going to get fuel, where I was going to take my break, where I was going to stay for the night, and so on and so on. And I had to send that to him and get it approved before I could go. Now, it was a pain in the neck after a while, yes, but it helps me to gain a skill where, I'm not just shooting blanks into the dark and just trying to find a park and spot when I have 3 minutes left on my clock. So it's all about being prepared. And then one of the biggest safety issues is also know your surroundings. Be vigilant about it. You don't want to park in that area where, you don't feel safe, or there's no lighting around or anything like that of that nature also.
Good points. You mentioned this spot in Fairfax area where off of 66 there's only parking for 3 or 4 trucks. You said that's a safety concern. I'm assuming you're meaning there's safety in numbers. The more trucks, the safer you are. No, is that what you mean, or what do you mean?
No, what I'm saying is that there's a rest area on the east and westbound side of 66 as you're going into or coming out of the DC area where you can only fit 3 trucks. Mm-hmm. So if you're on a trip and you've got to deliver somewhere in that area, and being a congested area as it is, as residential and business, there's not a lot of places to park trucks. It's not very what we call out there in the world truck friendly. So if you're trying to get to a safe haven parking spot and it's 9:00 in the evening on a Wednesday, you're not going to find a parking spot at that rest area.
Oh, I see.
So that's what I'm talking about as far as safety parking. Now, yeah, I mean, there's safety in numbers, like at a very large truck stop. But if it's in a certain part of the country, on a certain highway, I won't say no names, but the word's out: don't ever park there because it's not safe. Get fuel and get out.
So you really mean that it's, the safety concern is just that if because it will be likely filled with only 3 or 4 spots, then you don't really have other options because you're right into the city.
Yeah. And then you get caught, sleeping on a shoulder, or you have to sleep on an on ramp, or sleep on the off ramp.
Okay.
For some guys, they're okay with that. Again, personally, myself, I'm not. So.
I gotcha. Oh, I feel I feel like I learned a lot in that little chat.
No.
All right. So one more question and then we're going to go. I think this is a great way to kind of wrap it all up. What is your morning routine? Just kind of summarize it for us. And how long does it take you to complete it?
Morning routine. I get up, get dressed, and open all my curtains and open all my shades on the truck. And usually the truck's idling because, I have to have air at night. But then I get out. I check my lights. I do look around and check my tires. I check to make sure my trailer is attached to my truck. It's a big concern, and it's a mistake that can be avoided very easily. And I check my tires. I check the lights, and I make sure that I have, if I'm going to pull out, that no one's got stuck up underneath my trailer, or no one's hiding underneath there, and certain things like that. And you just basically, look over the truck, look under the truck. Is there an oil leak or something leaking, or is there a puddle underneath there, and so on and so on. And then I get back into my truck and I prepare myself mentally to get out on these roads.
So how long does all that take?
Well, usually it takes anywhere between, 3 to 7 minutes, I guess.
And then you have those lights that go through that whole checking thing, and I've seen that before.
Yeah, it goes through all the light sequence. High beams, low beams, your hazard lights, blinker lights, and all the other good stuff. So your marker lights on the trailer and your marker lights on the truck and stuff like that.
And that would be considered your pre-trip?
That would be considered the pre-trip, yep.
All right. I got it.
Good job, Doc. All right.
Ready to get my CDL now.
No, you're not.
Yeah,
but anyways.
Yeah. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, that's another debate. It's not going to happen.
Well, thank you for the chat and the time to record this. This has been a fun conversation, and I hope that others will enjoy it as well. So for all of you listening, thank you for joining us and indulging us as we go through these safety concerns, and for me, learning a lot of new things about what it means to be safe, and from the big truck driver perspective, which is very different from, driving a car. As you are listening, again, if you see this post on social media, please comment with any of your takeaways, extra safety concerns, tips, whatever you have to share. We'll be checking for those. We'll love to hear about that. Remember to share the podcast. Just click the share button with any of the social media posts. Share it with a friend. You can share it through a text message from our website to your network, to your colleagues. You can share it via email. The more you share, the more people have a chance to find out about the podcast and listen, and we continue to grow. So help us to grow this podcast and reach more people who may be interested in learning about what it's like to be on the road as a truck driver.
Right. And I would like to, a small disclaimer. What's good for me might not be good for somebody else. What I do, other people might not do. So if you want to share your story of your safety concerns with your truck and what you do, please feel free. Become a guest. Let's talk about this discussion. I think this is a topic that will never go away because there's so many personalities out there in the trucking world, and people do things a lot differently. So if you want to disagree with what I have to say or agree with it, just be a guest and please come on.
Yeah, it's super easy from our website, which is healthyconversationsinTrucking.com, or to make it easy, HCITpodcast.com will take you to our website. And from the menu, you can just click on Be a Guest. And it's as simple as that. Fill out a few bits of information, and then we'll be able to meet and have a conversation. So, yeah, I think we covered it all.
Sounds good. Remember, zipper is the best.
I agree, actually. We don't tend to agree on all these types of things, but I actually like that idea, that method better than straight line. But, we'll see what everybody else has to say.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Healthy Conversations in Trucking podcast. Learn more or be a guest on a future episode by visiting healthyconversationsinTrucking.com or simply hcitpodcast.com.